Welcome to the RD2BE podcast. Each week we sit down with a different registered dietitian nutritionist to showcase the diversity of opportunity in the dietetics profession. Our aim is to dismantle the notion that there is a traditional career path. I'm Carl Barnes, the registered dietitian behind the scenes of RD2BE.
And I am Jenna Warnock, the RD2BE host. Our RD guests share their stories, career paths, and advice to help students like us succeed in the profession. Welcome back to another week of the RD2BE podcast. We're super excited to feature yet another dietetic internship program. And so today we're sitting down with Miss Alegria Cohen. She's the DI director at the Hebrew Rehabilitation Center dietetic internship that's actually affiliated with Harvard Medical School. So we're super excited and interested to hear about this program. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Jenna. I really appreciate you taking the time to interview me and educate everyone who's potentially interested in applying to our program.
Yeah, definitely. And so to kind of set the stage with how you got to your current role in the program, how did you obtain your role as DI director?
So our facility, so this is a teaching hospital that I work at, a long-term chronic care hospital, and we've been taking interns from Boston area based internships for well over 15 years. So ever since I started here about 12 years ago, we've been taking interns. I was the primary preceptor for interns from Beth Israel, from Simmons University, and then multiple distance programs. So I was the preceptor and we had a lot of staff that was experienced. So we said, okay, let's start our own internship. And it was kind of a natural, obviously I was really interested in precepting and teaching. So I felt like this was the next step in my career to help establish this program.
Awesome. So you would say that you're one of the founders of this dietetic internship?
Yes, so I developed the curriculum for it with the help of the clinical nutrition manager and our administrative director for all of our academic programming. So not only do we have nutrition interns at our facility, we also have Harvard Medical School geriatric fellows, PT interns. We have 1,000 interns that we teach from all different disciplines every year.
Yeah, and that's awesome. And that kind of shows just one, how committed you are to the program, and two, just how much you know the ins and outs of what interns can see and who they're collaborating with and just all of those things. And so you mentioned geriatric fellowships and things like that. And so your program has a concentration in older adults. And so can you kind of explain why your program decided to provide that concentration?
So this was just a natural concentration. We serve the majority of the population that we serve is over 65. So our interns come out of this internship being very comfortable with this population, which is special because especially in relation to nutrition, this population can be cared for in a little bit of different way. Nutrition interventions can be a little bit different when you specialize with this population. And this population is really growing because, as you know, we have the baby boomers are all getting to be this age. So it's definitely this field that's really booming. There's a big need for dietitians to be specialized in this field. So that is the majority of our clinical focus is with that age group, but we also do provide exposure to all different parts of the life cycle because it's important to have a really well-rounded experience during your internship.
Yeah, definitely. And so because you guys tailor the majority of your population to that geriatric community, can you describe how that concentration is incorporated into your program?
Sure. So clinicals, again, we have a 5-week rotation that's long-term care, so chronic care, and then so the vast majority of those are 65 and older, and our rehab rotation is also that kind of clientele. Some of them are a little bit younger. But then we also have within food service, we do a lot of most of the food service exposure is in the hospital setting. So we deal a lot with IDSE, the dysphagia, so that's the International Dysphagia Standardization Initiative. So all the modified consistency diets, that's something that everyone gets really well versed in. And some of our projects, like our literature review paper, that is focused on research that occurs in older adults.
Awesome. And so you did mention, to ensure that the interns get that well-rounded experience, seeing different patients across the life cycle. You've touched on, where they'll see that geriatric concentration, but what other parts of the rotations would they see other populations?
So we do have a rotation with Head Start. So that's definitely the other end of the life cycle. So interns get exposure to little kids, and they really like dealing with that population. So they have that. Interns also have a wellness rotation. So that's directed at adults and doing education to it's really corporate wellness. So that's a really great and different opportunity that our interns have here. So providing education to adults, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. And then just in general, we also have the plan your own rotation. So we do see a lot of our interns tend to look into pediatric opportunities. So that's something that's also available. And that's a 2-week rotation.
Awesome. Yeah. So you definitely ensure, yes, while you have this concentration, you're not going to be short-sighted on, seeing different patient populations, different medical diseases, and you get that well-rounded experience outside of that concentration. And so, yeah. And so getting into, the nitty-gritty technical parts of, applying to your program, kind of looking at the overview, how many interns have applied to your program, and then how many did you accept last year? Because if I'm not mistaken, this is your second year of the program.
Yes. So last year, we had about 20 applicants, which is being a newer program in such a saturated city. All these other internships. We had 20 applicants, and we accepted 6 of those applicants, and we have an excellent class this year. I'm so happy with our interns this year. We're having a really fun year together.
Yeah, and so now that diecast just passed as we're recording this, do you by any chance have a general idea of if the amount of applicants that did apply change or increased?
We definitely did see a decrease in applicants, and that is very consistent with every intern, at the very least, all the standalone internships. It really is reflective of the master's requirement this year. All those seniors that were about to graduate and last year would have applied for internships have to wait another year and get their master's. So I'm hoping that this is kind of just a little bit of a blip, and next year we'll see increased enrollment, but I definitely see a decrease this year. But that's good for applicants. It won't be as competitive. So I'm excited for those who are able to apply this year.
Yeah, and we'll definitely go into given that you're a standalone dietetic internship, we'll definitely go more into how you're going to address the 2024 changes and the applicant requirements with that. But so kind of starting from the beginning of the application process, can you describe your pre-select process for the internship?
Yes. So we've partnered with several different universities. So we partnered with Framingham State University, which is my alma mater. So I'm very excited to partner with that. Simmons University, we also have a great relationship with them, and Rosalind Franklin Medical University. And those students are pretty lucky. They get to apply. They have the option to apply via DICUS, but that deadline is December 31st. So they apply, pay their application fee, and then we guarantee an interview with each of those individuals, and we will give them a decision by January 15th. So in that regard, you don't have to spend all the money participating in the match, applying to, all those different internships. There's so many different costs affiliated with the match. I did a coordinated program myself, so I didn't have that experience, but this process, one, it's just nice because you don't have to go through that match system. And then also the financial aspect of saving that money is definitely would be helpful in this economy.
Prior to discussing the pre-select process, you mentioned we were going to mention discussing the graduate degree component and how your program is going to incorporate that. And so regarding the pre-select process, is this going to be for interns affiliated with those universities that are about to graduate with their master's degree, or how will that play in?
So it's either they have they're about to graduate, like you said, with their master's degree, but we also accept interns who are already accepted into a master's program. So you have to be enrolled in a program in order to be accepted, but you don't have to come in with your master's. We do require, and this is true of all internships now, is that you have to have your master's degree to sit for the exam. So we don't give the verification statement until you obtain your master's degree. So it is, you have to complete our master's, and then you have about 15 months you complete our internship, and then you have 15 months to complete your master's. So ideally, you would be taking classes while you're doing your internship, or we do have a student right now who was in her master's and is taking 2 semesters off and will complete her master's afterwards. So that's also an option. It is ideal to come in with a few classes under your belt just for your own sanity, but you can just be enrolled into the master's program.
Awesome. And then kind of going into, like, with what you mentioned, the different kind of tracks or things you can do while obtaining your master's degree, your program offers 2 different tracks, a full-time option and a part-time option. So so from what I'm inferring with what you just mentioned, you offer those 2 tracks to kind of provide flexibility for those master's students, correct?
Our part-time track is 24 hours a week. So that definitely gives some extra time available for classes. I know a lot of master's programs now are online and asynchronous, so that doesn't seem to have too much of an impact. But just having the extra 16 hours a week, either to work on classwork or to actually work on get some money, is pretty good thing that we're able to accommodate if you wish to pursue the part-time track.
Definitely. And so I think it's great how you guys offer that kind of way of support by allowing a part-time option so that interns have that space to, if they're actively working on a master's degree, they can work on it without being overwhelmed. But then also, if they're coming in with a master's degree, they can just do full-time, get that dietetic internship out of the way, and sit for their exam. And so that's one way that you provide really great support for your interns. But are there other ways that you provide support for your interns throughout the program?
So so in terms of we really have received feedback that we are just in general a very supportive company. It really stems from the very top, from the CEO, and being so supportive of the program and having this program succeed. So because it's so supported, it's really easy for our preceptors to really become attached and support each student, mentor them. I am also on site, so I see our interns every single day. They come to my desk and ask me questions all the time. I'm available via email, text. And then we do offer, one thing that is nice that we offer our intern is these online mental health services. It's called Ginger, and it is our employees can use it, but we also offer those services to our interns, which is really, something that's definitely the need for that is definitely increasing. So it's a nice bonus that we have, because going through your internship can be a little bit of a stressful time. So having additional support, it's all virtual, confidential, is a nice thing that we offer.
And yeah, and I think I'm really glad that you highlighted that, because I definitely, after, hearing you say that, I feel like a lot of programs should offer some type of support like that for interns, because yes, we learn all of the foundational knowledge with our bachelor's degree, but whenever, we get thrown on into the field right then and there, it can get incredibly overwhelming, anxious, and just lots of different racing thoughts. And so I think it's really great how you have literally a very nice interpersonal way that interns can just, talk to someone in a professional, like what you said, confidential format. And yeah, I'm really glad that you highlighted that about your program, because that can definitely alleviate a lot of stress for interns going in, just with circulating with the graduate degree, completing those supervised practice hours. You do a really great job at just like alleviating that stress where you can, which is really great. And so going into like, say that a listener is like, oh my gosh, I'm super interested in applying to this program, what can I do best to kind of see if I'm a good fit for your program? And so other than, maybe having an interest in the geriatric population or older adults, what additional attributes or traits do you think an applicant would fit well with your program?
We definitely like to see just passion about the field in general. I know that's really very general. But it is really nice to see someone who's passionate about helping others in terms of other fellow interns, not just, the patients, but we really work together as a group. Again, going through an internship is definitely an experience that takes a lot out of you sometimes. So it's so important for our interns to be great team players and work together as a group. I've been very lucky in both of our groups. While this is not necessary, but both groups these past 2 years have become, so close on a personal level and have built friendships. So we're looking for someone, obviously, team player, really passionate, really is good with giving me feedback. We do evaluations on every single rotation. And I love the honest feedback. If you just tell me, oh, everything was great, well, happy to hear that. But I want to know what didn't work or what you thought was okay, but how it could be better. So that's the person who I really like to see, is someone who's able to give professional, constructive feedback to me and not be, and feel comfortable. And that's not kind of the atmosphere I like to open up with during orientation, is just having people feel comfortable coming and talking to me or others, coming and giving honest feedback, not holding anything in. Because that really, if I don't know if something's not going well, I can't fix it. But if someone tells me, this isn't working well, I don't just wait until the following year to fix it. I make sure it's fixed by the next time the next intern comes in. So very open and honest is really what I like to see in an intern.
Yeah, and I think that's also a great skill that gets translated over to when they're a professional and in those leadership positions where you have to give feedback to like an employee, or say you are the one that has to implement change. It's like I feel like a lot of dietetic students we are hard on ourselves, but we're not constructively, like, it's kind of good to constructively provide feedback on both ourselves and also outward things. And so that's a really great skill that, you promote those interns to have, because you're prepping them up for whenever they are a professional, where they'll have to be providing that constructive feedback in almost any situation in dietetics, because as we know, it's an ever evolving field and things have to change like every week. Like, it's just crazy how fast it's changing. So yeah, that's an awesome,
Exactly.
yeah, like that's an awesome thing that you really promote your students to have. And so we did mention a little bit earlier that you guys are affiliated with Harvard Med School. And so of course, like Harvard, that's very like, buzzy word, like, ooh, and things like that. But I'm sure some students may be intimidated to apply to your program because it's connected to such a prestigious, high achieving school. And so first off, I would want to start with, if you have any like worries or things you would want to dismantle for students that are worried about it, but then also kind of focusing on what are the benefits of being connected to Harvard.
Honestly, I do feel like it's a draw. I haven't had anyone who was afraid that we were affiliated. I definitely understand that view that might come off like that, but from my experience with all our current interns, previous interns, and applicants, it's definitely been something that interns inquire about, of like, how can I benefit from this, just as you said. And really, it's the exposure. We do have a research rotation in which the interns work along with Harvard researchers. And we do a class day in which we have a professor from Harvard comes in, and she does a lot of education on nutrition research. And then this might sound a little silly, but every year our interns get really excited to have a Harvard email address. That was one thing that I remember giving out everyone's email address that first day of orientation, and they got so excited. And I was like, okay, now I get it. But yeah, it's just nice. It's a nice atmosphere to be able to be exposed to and affiliated. Boston, even though it's a city, it's a small city. So it's nice to make some of those connections and have some of those roots in such a great, associated with such a great teaching school or medical school.
Yeah, and also I'm glad that you mentioned like that networking aspect. And actually before we started recording, we talked about how small the dietetics profession is and how you really don't know where your next opportunity will be. But if you just connect and, like form those connections with the people around you, it can really benefit you, whether you know it, like 2, 5, 10 years down the road. And especially with the location of Boston, like with what you said, there are a lot of rotations there, like from my understanding is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but there are like a lot of dietitians in that area. And so like it's a great networking spot, I'm sure.
Definitely. There are definitely a lot of dietitians, a lot of hospitals located here. But we also have a lot of, there's a lot of food service and opportunities. 2 of our graduates actually graduated and both work together at Mass General as food service supervisors. So they're in managerial positions, which is nice. We never really thought that people would leave and kind of go into the food service world. But that is where they ended up. And there really are a lot of outpatient opportunities. There's just so much out there, and you don't have to move very far because there's really just so many opportunities here. And that's one reason why I stayed here. I'm originally from New York. So I knew when I went to school here, I kind of pretty early on in my time at Framingham State, I was like, I think I'm going to stay here. I see so many more opportunities here, even though I had no family, came in knowing absolutely no one. I still said, like, professionally, I think this is probably going to be my smart decision to stick around.
Yeah, and like definitely it kind of just shows being open-minded as well, because I've heard a lot of program directors also say they hear interns going in being like, I'm 100% going to do clinical, or I'm 100% going to do this, but then after they do their rotations and they see what it's like, they turn out and being like, maybe not. And so it's like definitely, and like it reflects both in the educational, academic, and professional setting, like just being open to the opportunities and seeing where they take you. It's a really like great skill and thing to do. And it's awesome to see that those 2 interns benefited from it as well, and then you've also benefited from it as well, to moving to Boston.
Yeah.
And so we've had a really great conversation talking about the different components of your program, like what you look for in certain applicants. And so say that someone is getting ready to apply for dietetic internships, and they're interested in applying to your dietetic internship, or just like kind of wanting to see what the world of applying to dietetic internships even is. And so to end with the final question, what advice would you give students getting ready to apply for those dietetic internships?
So if you're pretty early on, I would definitely make sure you get as much experience as possible once you're getting ready to apply and you already have those experiences, make sure you're able to put that on paper. Don't hold anything back. We personally, my favorite part of the process is interviewing. So regardless of what you put on paper or not, it really is a whole other story when you speak, when you interview someone. But for a lot of different schools, putting a lot of that information on paper really is important, because that's what your first impression is. And then also when you put it on paper, make sure everything is grammatically correct. I've definitely seen a lot of applications that just that alone doesn't give a really great first impression. But put a lot of time, effort, and give yourself some time and effort. Don't wait till the last minute to put everything into DICUS. Like I said earlier, I did not have the pleasure, if you want to call it pleasure, of participating or submitting everything through DICUS, but I do know it's very time consuming. Lots of information needs to go in there, references, getting those transcripts, especially now that the master's requirement. I've seen a lot of our applicants have multiple transcripts that they have to get. So really just practicing some good time management. And that's another skill that is really important for your professional career. So it starts with that, can even start with that DICUS application process, is really being able to manage your time and make sure you turn the application in on time.
Yeah, and I'm really glad that you honed in on you can use skills that will benefit your professional career into that DICAS application. And I think, yeah, that'll definitely show if you put, all of your hard work into it on the program director's perspective, for sure. But yeah, so thank you so much for talking about your program, Ms. Cohen. And I'm sure, and I know that listeners will learn a lot, not just about your program specifics, but also just great advice revolving all of the things that come around with dietetic internships. So again, thank you so much for taking time to talk about your program.
Thank you for having me.